Morning. A little bit about me. I'm Susan Young. I've been in real estate for 20 years now. I consider myself a KW OG. So I started here when we opened the office 15 years ago. And good morning. I know that only because my oldest is 15. So it was the year he was born. So I always remember. Um, I have a small team. My husband is on my team, and we have my business partner. So been doing this 20 years, here 15. On my bucket list was to do my broker course for the education purposes. And I did that during COVID, and the position became available to join Ann's team. So I am a managing associate broker. So I'm one of the people that you call. Ann and I rotate the days, and then there's a broker on evenings and weekends. It's our um, for hotline. So I'm one of those people. And this is my first time teaching Win the Buyer. I would say to you, like, I'm crazy about courses, so I've pretty much done every course Keller Williams has. Mm, So what I will try to do is, like, I'm going to go through the material as best I can. You guys can ask me questions. May give you my 2 cents on how I do things. Um, just because, not to say anything different, but I mean, this is a great course. I think they tweaked it a bit to make it because it's very Americanized. And when I think of Americanized, I think of very aggressive, assertive behavior. And I don't necessarily think that's the vibe of most Nova Scotians. It's just my opinion. Um, so we'll run through it, and you can ask me questions, and we can talk about. Um, I think the way the courses have been set up is, I know you guys have had different instructors. Um, and likes certain courses to be taught by a broker because when it comes to giving advice, you're not supposed to be getting advice from someone standing around the water cooler in real estate. Oh, geez, got a seasoned agent coming in on Ignite. um, I'd like to say it's me. I'm very popular, and that's why people are coming. But that's yeah. Oh, maybe. Um, so yeah, so Anne likes, again, when it comes to giving advice, mm, one of the things that I appreciate about Keller Williams is you learn a lot. And we are typically rule followers. We don't create the rules, NSREC creates the rules. I just think if you're going to be in a profession and you're going to do your job, you should do it well and should do it right. That's just my opinion. So I would say that would be a vibe of KW. Feel like we teach from experience, we teach from the rules. Like, so I feel like a lot of opportunity. Like, I mean, as you know, and you've talked about already about generating your own business. Like, my joke has always been to people, everyone thinks realtors put a for sale sign on the front lawn and we all make $1 million. Easy peasy. And that's not necessarily the case, right? Um, I- so I applaud all of you and the ones online for taking this course. And I hopefully today will help you. And again, you can feel free to my brain throughout. Leisha says that I can just click a button. I don't believe her. So we're on session 14. Tracy.
how many sections are there?
Let's look at that, Louis. So let's go with 20. Now, whether they've combined them and done, they don't have access. Jessica didn't give me the format, but I think even she said to me yesterday when I was here, you guys were getting an email yesterday from her. I'm not even on that email list of hers. Let's go through win the buyer, because you've obviously talked about generating leads, following up. Interesting, because this is a term they used to call it. Has anyone read the MREA? Read. So I would say that's a great resource. Gary Keller wrote that. So it's the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's not for KW agents, it's for all realtors. And they used to call it METs and have METs. So based on your database, again, your database can be like depending on how if you're getting online sources, lead sources, inquiries, that type of thing. But to me, when I see A buyers, they would consider that someone who's motivated and ready to go. I don't know how these guys look at it, but I look at it as or even my A clients too. I base it based on like who's given me referrals, right? And so keeping in contact with people on a regular basis. I get to refer to myself because again, like I mentioned, I've been doing this 20 years. So I've been there before, like, and I can tell my old school stories. Your grandparents used to talk about how they'd walk to school uphill both ways in a snowstorm and all that. Well, I'm one of those realtors that we didn't get emails on our phone in the beginning. We went into the office, and on a Saturday evening, if I received an offer, I printed that offer and I drove out to Porter's Lake to meet my client. I sat at their kitchen table. I presented it. I drove home. I faxed it or scanned it back to the agent. I would play that card a couple times because I am one of those old people. What I love is command. Like system is crazy for the fact of comparing it to we used to have to do on our own versus what you're able to do. Set up by Williams in the sense that even when they talk about labs, KW labs, they're always working with agents and learning how they run their business and what they need and making the system better and providing that. I would say, Chris, you've probably delved into command quite a bit since you've been with us, hence your videos and stuff. There's so many resources on there, like to the point where, like anything with information, you can have information overload. You want to pick something that you want to learn about, whether it's like open houses or, you know, um, paid ads, that type of thing. There's so much information there available to you. Um, and they set things up automated, right? Like makes us look like geniuses even when we don't have to be. We totally lied. She said just press down. So I would say to you, you have to figure out, like, for me, my business is a lot of sphere of influence and repeat and referral business. I often tell when I meet with people that I'm meeting for the first time, you won't see a billboard of me when you're driving down the Bedford Highway. Not where I spend my money. That's not the type of advertising that I do. There are agents that do that. There are agents that get things from online or agents that do open houses as their main lead source. I don't know if anyone has read the KW playbook. Have, you have? I already got my keener, got my eye on you. I know. So the playbook is written by Jason Abrams and Keller Williams. And Gary has this philosophy of one pagers. So let's say you want to do newsletters. It's what you want to focus on, and you're really into editing, writing, that type of thing. Or you can flip through that book and there'll be a one pager. Once they find someone who was doing it really well, they interviewed them, and they've literally said, break down in a step by step of open houses. We have like, there was one lady who, or she was really into walking. So she formed a walking group in her neighborhood, and she gets a ton of business from her walking group in her neighborhood. Like, so I love this philosophy now of find something that you love. I know an agent here who plays hockey, and he gets a lot of business from his men's league hockey group. So McQueenie, who's an OP in Ontario, he's come here quite a bit to teach courses. He talked about a agent that he was coaching that had a baseball team. He's like, I get so much business from my baseball team, but he's like, only sell them so many houses, that type of thing. He's like, join another baseball league. Like, so you can really do whatever it is that you want. We literally, if we sat here, the six of us, we'd all probably do different things. Um, I just say, don't try them all. Like, you know what I mean? Don't spread yourself thin. What you like, what interests you, and that may be open houses. We have an agent who's doing very well. Um, that I call them the COVID kids. So people who got their license in COVID. He loves open houses. Like he begs to do open houses. I'm like, have at her, right? But he generates leads from them, generates business.
Good houses, they don't cost them anything except your house and you create. They do pay off.
Yeah, I've done lots of new construction in my career. So to me, new construction is a little bit different because if you come in and look at the house, you don't necessarily like that house. But we have 10 other lots, so we can build you a different house or at a different price point. So it's kind of, you know, whereas when you're doing an open house on a resale, you would just have that one property. But I would say to you, be cognizant of the area you're picking, the price point you're picking. That's going to determine probably who's coming through and looking, right? And those are the type of clients that you have to decide who you want to work with. Still, 20 years in, I love first time home buyers. Love first time home buyers because they're bright eyed and bushy tailed and they're excited, but they're nervous. The majority of them will listen to me. Like they look to you for guidance, they look to you for your experience, and they've also never done it before. So if you're newer, like you don't have to be perfect because they don't know the difference, right? But I love working with first time home buyers because it's just the excitement that they have. They have nervousness. They have a lot of excitement.
Good question. It's not 100% related to what you just said, but you said you got a lot of new construction. You don't get new. That's my question.
Yeah, sure. Everyone thinks I joke because I worked with an agent here for years in the office, and that's all he does is new construction. And everyone thinks, oh, because you do when you have a good project, you make a lot of money. There's a lot of work that goes into new construction. Like again, for people to think that it's so easy, like I would say to you, go try it. However, all that is it's relationships. It's relationships with others. Um,
Yeah, because I was doing a little bit of online research and it seems like Marchand is everywhere. So there's Marchand Homes and Raymar Homes. There's all Marchand. Oh, I know. So that's why.
yeah. So,
How do you weasel your way in?
well, that's yeah. So Jeff Marchand, like, so his father is the Marchands who started Raymar. His grandfather started Raymar. So it was Raymar. There's three brothers. They their separate ways. Two brothers kept Raymar, the other brother, which is Jeff and Brad Marchand's father. So Jeff runs the construction. That is some money behind it because he's busy playing hockey. And Rebecca is one of their lead listing agents.
Okay, so you just have to get your,
And there's a guy that's
Well, they probably have written, but the Chase, yeah, so he's a Marchand, but he's with Angle Invokers. So you know the people that are with Angle Invokers are doing the Raymar stuff. Whereas Jeff and Rebecca are at. So I would say to you, it's just building relationships.
I'll just tack on to that. This one from colleagues here, Jessica, she just got in with a private builder. Does custom lakefront properties. It's taken her 2 years to get in
oh, wow.
with him. So, you know, it takes time.
My business partner, Ryan, is president of Stonewater Homes. So Ryan's been in the business longer than I have. So I'm the lead listing agent on all of Stonewater's properties. Because Ryan's busy running a construction company, but it was a relationship that I've built for 20 years. So it took 18 years before he was like, okay, let's go this way with our partnership. Yeah. I would say it's not an easy feat.
Yeah, no, I didn't think it was gonna be easy. I just thought, is there some way? Cause everyone here seems to know each other except for me.
No, I would say you can also, there's lots of success stories in real estate when it comes to talking about people who come into like a community or a province that know nobody and do really well. So don't let that be a deterrent for you, I would say, absolutely. So they talk about taking your leads and converting to A buyers. I would say to you, that stuff is easy now. Like as far as you can automate, if you're getting inquiries online, you can have something set up that they can get a response. I know of an agent who would take his leads and he would call them first thing every morning, right? He'd have his list and that was his like lead generation source based on everything that he would have had inquiries on the day before. I think at one point they say about doing it in 15 minutes. I'm like, also another resource that I would say to you is the MREA podcast. So if you're not a book reader, I listen to those podcasts while I'm driving. Again, they focus more on a niche. Each podcast is on something. So if you were interested in like open houses or social media, like again, I'm an old bird now, like trying to get leads from Instagrams and not going to be my thing. Be your thing though. 'Cause you're young and probably are better at social media than I am. I would say that as with anything, it's conversations, asking questions. So finding out the motivation of a buyer. Asking questions is going to give you the roadmap to anything, right? Especially like, so let's take open houses, for example. You have someone that comes in, you ask them questions. They're like, oh, we just live in the neighborhood. We're having a look. I'm going to ask them about what do you like about the neighborhood? Kids go to the schools. Let them do the talking, right? And then you find out, even for you, that's a way of gathering information about the neighborhood, right? So did Sherry do open houses as far as you guys for Ignite, as far as gathering, signing in, doing the online sign in? Like she's a keener at that stuff. I've actually had her do open houses for me because I love the way she does that. I'm old school. I have the piece of paper and say, here, fill this in. And always on mine, I ask if they're working with a realtor. Because at the end of the day, well, I ask out of the respect for other colleagues. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want to be chasing someone down that is already in a signed BDBA, right? Would be a waste of my time. This is interesting. Have you gone over this as far as tactics? Chris, has this been covered in any of the other material? Like hard close, soft close, like strong arm, they don't call it strong arming, but I'm like, strong arming, like sign here, that type of thing. You have to just figure out what's best for you, right? Um, I'm sure that's not what the material says, but that's my advice that I'm going to give to you. Again, when we talk about asking questions, it's relational, right? Like I spoke to a friend of mine from university was talking to me about a company in Ontario. Like they're a volume-based real estate company. You don't work with one agent, you work with the whole brokerage. And so it's whoever's on duty you're working with. So you list your house, and it could be me who listed it. Then you're on the next day and you deal with them for showings, and then you deal with them for the offer. And again, I would say to each his own, but to me, real estate is always going to be relational. Really is. I don't think that's going to beat out of, like, again, when you online. And but who knows, maybe 20 years from now I'll be sitting here saying it was wrong. I think it's really important, as far as giving the different types of closings. I'm just going to say to you, it's based on your personality. Obviously, getting an appointment is very important. From a broker standpoint, explaining to a buyer what their agency is. And so when I say BDBA, I mean the buyer designated brokerage agreement. Right? So I had my first broker long time ago explained it to from a liability standpoint of he always said he who had the thickest file wins. Right? And I have never wanted anyone to be able to say, you didn't tell me that. You didn't explain that. Right? So I have systems set up in my business. One, completely transparent. It's so that I don't muff things up. If you do things repetitively the same way, you won't miss things. Right? So that's good for me personally. Then for you doing it your system in your way, it's that nothing gets missed on their end. You treat every buyer that you work with same way as far as consultations and such goes. Right? I have even now created lists. So, and you can create your checklists even as you go through a deal. Like I had someone explain to me pre-COVID, I call it BC, before COVID, when he was hiring an assistant. He said, Susan, you don't know how much we know till you have to tell somebody who doesn't know it. Right? So someone brand new, or he was hiring an administrator. So for example, in my head, I know that when I'm doing a listing, I have to order a sign up. If you came and worked with me, right, and or I'm helping you through your first listing, I have to remember to tell you that. Right? So I was kind of like, because again, it's just putting the lockbox on, like doing things that you're like, oh, I've just done it so many times that I would think that people knew that, but you don't. So I've created checklists as you go through things. Now you can get checklists from other people. You can even put them in command as you go through. You can have each task. Chris, how much are you using opportunities?
Oh,
Yeah. So um there was an agent who told me, which was me, it was like this light bulb brilliant. Yes, opportunity. Now I use opportunities based on opportunities to me as a deal file. It's your client. So I don't know if you guys have moved into it at all as far as opportunities go. He talked about every morning how he'd open his command and his opportunities would be his potential business. So not just the deals he's working on, potential leads and potential clients or potential clients that he's working with. And I'm like, oh, that's really genius. And sometimes when I get busy, I make lists, right, of people I've talked to for the last 6 months about who's going to buy, right? Because honestly, unless you do something, it's just from me, but unless you do something like create them on a drip campaign or something, you can busy with life and you forget that you talked to your buddy that you used to work with and he said he was thinking about buying something 12 months from now. Yes. So opening the opportunities to him was his cultivate, he would see all his actionable like potential clients. And that would trigger him to reach out. Um, say, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say the majority of us are terrible at follow up. I always think of when I'm working with a buyer or a seller, like we're dating and we're in a relationship and things are good. We're going dating on a regular basis. I'm touching base, I'm sending them texts. It's after the deal is done, I feel like it's like a breakup and we just don't talk anymore. When you're trying to court someone, you're interested, you would be touching base on a regular basis. I feel like that can often ball can get dropped. So command allows you the ability to do that. For new people, the other thing to me is like you want to be reminding or list your contacts who you've created as that you're in the business, right? And whether you're doing that on social media, whether you're sending them an email, whether you're sending a text, you're mailing letters, those type of things are really important. But when it comes to getting the buyer, got to court them, then it's when you get them. It, have Chris, we've talked about a couple things as far as I know on um, broker stuff. So have you worked with a handful of buyers now?
Sure.
Yeah. Um, what would you say some of the top tips that you would say to anyone, including me, what you would do with buyers?
One of the things I would tell you to do with buyers is meet them where they are. I've got buyers that will never text, but we text talk conversation over email. So that's the follow-up channel.
Mm.
So people that will never answer the phone, but they you text and where they are. Some people don't do any of it. They want to meet in person. So you're like, oh god, they try. But meeting clients where they are can be frustrating sometimes if your communication style is not like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, adapting to them. Totally. Like having kids. You get kids, different personalities. You gotta reward them, encourage them, and punish them differently, right? Um, my big thing for everyone, I would say to you, is the consultation. Whatever that is going to look like for you, um, I would say work on that. And as I mentioned, stick with it and be consistent about it. So, my husband was in the military. We do a lot of military relocations. So I would use the example of out of province buyers, right? I often deal with someone who's coming here on an HHT, so a house hunting trip. I started doing an email them because again, prepping them because for instance, let's say they're going to come here the 1st of June. They're here for 7 days. I'm taking them out to look at places. I want to start the prep work beforehand. So I started doing it with them and now I do it with everyone. But I have my email was called I have template emails that again, just doing the same things over. But mine was purchasing a property in Nova Scotia. So in the email, I'm very excited to help you purchase a property. Like, here's some of the paperwork that we're going to go through. And I have all the paperwork working with the real estate industry, your designated brokerage agreement. I explain in a little blurb what that is. I also include a link. There's a link for NSREC for the highly detailed people who want to read tons of stuff about it. So that's one of those after I talk to them, an initial email that I'm saying here, and I have blank templates that have the paperwork that have Boyd written through it, and I give that to them. Depending on sometimes where I am in the process, I might have already started filling out their paperwork. So I would already have filled their information out. So I'm going to give them that before we meet consultation or before my Zoom. One, I've given you the paperwork, so no one can say they didn't give you the paperwork. And I'm going to either meet with them in person or a Zoom consultation. Then I'm going to go over the paperwork with them. I have a different philosophy maybe than some people in the world. Again, back to the whole dating thing. I want to know if I want to work with them before I work with them. So I don't, this is being recorded, but Anne's watching. So you may not get a BDBA signed by me before we've gone out and looked at some houses. That's a thing. I don't want to get committed to a relationship that I don't want to be in. That's from years of experience of realizing how hard a breakup can be. Right? So that's how I do it. I depending on where I am. Like, and again, if it's someone that I've like is coming into town that I've been doing a ton of work with, um, previously, like to get them set up and answering their questions and have done their online consultation. When they get here, then we're signing that because I'm working for them. If it's a referral, and we've gone out once and I'm like, this is not someone I want to work with. But again, that's a personal decision. For me though, I want to explain everything. So I'm going to do the online consultation. Um, as your broker, if you call me for advice, I'm going to tell you always follow up verbal conversations, especially when something is very important. You can go through my emails and you see, as we discussed yesterday at the home inspection, this is what I suggest. Because I use the example of mm, picture doing a viewing. You've walked through the house with your client. They're like, I love this house. I want to write an offer. We're like, okay, so we go outside, very cognizant of cameras now and how far I am off the property, with everyone listening. So we talk about details. They're like, we're not going to do a home inspection. I'm like, whoa, whoa, what do you mean you're not going to do a home inspection? We've talked about that in our consultation. Like, no, my cousin's uncle's dad is a builder, so he's going to have a look at the place for me. And I'm going to say, okay, but as we discussed, I'm going to recommend that you have a home inspector. They're like, no, no, because we want to get this house. So to mitigate that, Anne has now created, we have what we call the KW acknowledgement and waiver. Right? So before you and I, as my buyers, sign that agreement of purchase and sale, I'm going to have you sign the waiver that says I've declined that. Because happens is you remember specifically whether and it was sprinkling a little bit, and you remember that viewing and you remember that conversation out on the front lawn. That's what they directed you to do. And then they bought the house, they went in on competing offers and they won. And 3 months later, the basement floods. Guess whose fault that is? Always, always ours. As Anne calls them, the big bad realtors, right? So they're going to say, a realtor never told me to get a home inspection. Actually, they said we should waive the home inspection so that we get the offer. And you remember the conversation. You remember it raining. You remember looking down and what shoes you were wearing. You're like, you liar. I did not do that. And then I'm going to say, but to cover me, I'm going to say, I'm going to have an email. Because again, back to my broker who taught me, he who has the thickest file wins. I'm going to have the email that says, as we discussed this evening, you wanted to waive your home inspection, and here is the waiver that's attached. And you're also going to have that waiver signed. Nobody going to catch me saying, you didn't tell me that. Even in DocuSign, with my emails, you can go through my DocuSigns that, again, now everyone's sending things electronically. It'll be in my blurb that's sent to them. Here is the paperwork that we have just reviewed online in our Zoom call, or here's the, that's a liability thing for me that plus I'm doing my job. Plus, I'm like, no one's burning me. Like that is to me this way to, and I feel like when you're doing a good job that way, you're gonna get the referrals. right? And that's how I get majority of my business. It's people who've said, oh, I had someone, I helped her sell mm, property, and then she referred her son to me recently. It's, to me, the best way you can get business. If you're into billboards, your this isn't in here, but your buyer designated brokerage agreement. Have you written? Sorry, tell me your first name. Say, have you written with any buyers yet?
I just my list 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow, fresh. So, when it comes to writing the buyer designated brokerage agreement, again, so the effective date is when it's going to start. There is no standard way of how long. Mine are typically 6 months long. Because again, I was in the real estate business BC before COVID. So it used to take that long to find them a place, write on a place, close. Like, so, but you can do it for 3 months, you can do it for 6 months, but your contract has to be valid. So if you wrote a 3-month contract and it took you 6 weeks to help them find a place, and then they did a 2-month closing out from that, your contract of your BDBA still has to be valid, even though they've written on a place and it's firmed up. Contract has to be valid until the closing. Because that contract says you're their representative, so you can still give them advice. It's a big thing for me, decision makers, although I would say that's more important on a seller. It's making sure that you have all the decision makers. There's nothing worse than you go to do a listing appointment. You get there and they're like, oh, you're like, there's 2 of you. I'm like, oh, my wife, she's gone to soccer with the kids, so we're just gonna go through this process. And I'm like, oh, great. Like, the decision maker isn't here and I have to do my whole presentation to you. So the other thing on here that they talk about, Chris, I'm gonna defer to you because you're my guru on command. Did you do a buyer guide through command?
Usually from the designs.
Yeah, and then you probably tweaked it. Right. Yeah. I have full disclosure, I have a husband who's got a lot of tech abilities. Chick doesn't. I have a lot of talking abilities. He has tech abilities. So any buyer guide that I've ever used, my husband has created. So I am not going to be your person to tell you where exactly in command is. That's why I always say we have Jessica. But I do have a buyer guide. Mm, we used to customize them with the person's name on it. Stuff. It's a bit of effort. Some people are really into effort. I might have a few already printed out that I bring with me. And it's just about finding out about their wants and needs, timelines. Um, so I'm doing one on Friday. So my consultation will be meeting with them. Obviously, I want to find out how much they're approved for, how much they want to spend. I'm going to get their wish list of what they want. Because I often tell people once we start looking, we can figure out pretty quick based on just asking questions of like, do you like this house? Because you get I want 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a detached garage, an acre lot, and I want to spend 500,000. And already I'm going, oh, I can, when I view a few places with people, I can pretty much figure out what they like, what they want real quick. And sometimes they don't know that, right? Because it's either their expectations for their budget are too high, right? Which is a hard conversation to have because, like, you need more money to buy what you think you want, right? Or they've got to lower their expectations to jump their budget. But as I explained, like, looking at stuff, it's part of the education process. Even for when they go to write an offer, if we've looked at 10 houses and our price point is 500,000, we've got a pretty good idea what you're going to get for 500,000, even if we're looking in different areas. It's not gonna have the brand new $45,000 kitchen your client wants. It's at that price point typically. We're driving to New Glasgow, I guess. Talks about lead sheets. I believe there are lead sheets. As I would say to you, I would say just get consistent with what you do, in your habits. Umi, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you have written checklists or is it all up in your head on your processes? So that's a typical realtor. We do that because we've just done it over and over again. I would encourage you, even with command, Chris, I'm putting you on the spot. How much have you tweaked or modified your opportunities to be custom?
One thing I've built opportunities is have a few custom states for the deal. Lists I have doc.
Me too. Yeah.
I just put up, go on, like, oh, I forgot. to put it
Correct.
in, add it on, ready. I look at it.
And I haven't done it, but you can take your checklist and you can make them tasks in opportunities. So, so for me, I have, when I get an accepted offer, I think it's called, in command, and it's just called due diligence. Like, so when you're going through your due diligence, then I take the little opportunity and then I move it over to firm. So then I can open up, but I have a line now that's like, closings this month. So if at the beginning of May, moved all my deals over to closing this month. Then I have a closing in a week. So I just helps my brain. And again, you might be just working with one deal. It's better to get the systems in place so that when you do have 2, 3, 4 deals on the go, keeps you more organized. So that to me, again, I go back to what Alex had said to me about looking at those opportunities. I started doing that because even for, oh, what do I need to do today? And then I open my opportunities and I look at what's closing this month. I have an email that I send to clients a month before closing, right? A seller or a buyer that says, closing day reminder. Disconnect your Nova Scotia power, and then if they want Halifax water, or, make sure the green bins are cleaned out. All those things, it just as a reminder, information, tell them, don't book anything on the day of closing because you don't know when you're getting your keys. That's $1 million question. Everybody asks it. Have a moving truck sitting outside. Don't have the cable guy coming from 9 to 3 because when I say that in my blurb, we don't know when we'll get the keys. So book all appointments for the day after close.
Yeah, they don't drink.
Well, that's, at least I told them, at least I told them. Oh, yeah. And don't hold me to like that they're fantastic. It's just it's a brain dump. And I have an email it's called Let's Get Your House Sold. So I send it to every listing. So if a listing is going live today, I have 123 Main Street, let's get your house sold. And it's a blurb. I'll tweak it a little based on, your sign is going up today or it's already gone up or it's live. I've been sending that freaking email for 17 years now. So we had clients like last year that we sold their place in like 3 rental properties. Like they must think I'm an idiot because I'm sending them the same email. That doesn't happen very often that you have someone who sells 4 houses in 1 year. But those are just, so it's nothing fancy. It's giving them the information and it's keeping me organized too. And I now go back to, I realize like in the back of my mind, I always want the, I told you so, told you so. Oh yeah. And as you can imagine as a client, like you want that information. You want to know what the next steps are. I know that we did a training at some point on this and I got that were on the, like, all the checklists, like, and there can be, I think, I talked to, a team here, they have like 90 some, kids, but they also have a full-time administrator, like, that'd send my head spinning. So I would say to you, most importantly, when we're talking about winning the buyer, is your buyer consultation. Um, it's it's reviewing the documents with them. I would say review yourself. There is a video. Another thing that I would say, what I love that we didn't have 20 years ago, Jessica has done that KW Select page. Do you all have access to it? Do you have access to it? I swear by that thing. That is a digital Bible that you guys are so freaking lucky to have. Like, there, I know there's a video because I've watched it before, and it's probably 4 or 5 years old now, but Anne does buyer consultation on there. There's old ignites, like there's a video library history, but then there's notes on how to do things, for setting up your first opportunity. Like, so I think Jessica and Aaron do a course called How to Get Paid. Um, it's new even for me and Umi, like we did, um, trade records in a PDF form. Now the trade records, just in the last year, go into, you do it through command. So for someone like Chris, that's kind of really how he probably did a trade record, but started out doing that way. So it's easy for him. See, there's an old school agent who's not willing to learn new tricks. That's how it was me. Yes, and there's a video. Like Aaron's got a video. Yeah.
Trade sheet wants PDF, text up my manager.
I would say in the last 8 to 12 months. But the good thing about it is it also, it does real time of like your GCI and your income and stuff. So again, when you put,
Yeah,
yes,
it's really good.
yeah, see, everybody learns something, Umi, even when we're old school and still come to this. Again, when I go back to what Alex said about opening those opportunities, and as a new agent, you can start using them even if you don't have deals on, but all you can have as your cultivate and your clients. If you have a client that's looking for a $500,000 house, right, and you know on average you're going to get paid 2%, it's a $10,000 price tag on those lovely people, even though we only love them for being, not that they're have a price tag on them. However, if you get them to buy and you do a good job, you're going to make $1,000. The office is going to take theirs, and RIA is going to take. So you're going to make 5,000. You know, still, it's still a paycheck.
So does that happen automatically?
Opportunities.
Yes.
When I was leaving her, it was all done for me,
Yeah.
so I need to.
Yeah. You got to learn how to.
Like some stuff is
Sell.
like running, like,
I tell people, again, I've already explained my lack of tech abilities. You have to make a contact and then you create an opportunity. I can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. It is not rocket science. Getting into what we talked about, like creating the tasks and doing all that stuff, again, they make it for realtors. We're not all savvy, smart people when it comes to technology. It's easy to do. Yeah, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Buyer guide contents. Only thing I would say about, again, this is something that you're going to create to you. We would have been on a team and it would have been created essentially towards the team, right? You can make it as detailed, as short and sweet, as you want. The only thing I would say about, again, tech isn't my strong suit, Chris, but neighborhoods, we would say, is probably not a big thing here in Canada, is the setting up the neighborhoods. But on Paragon, you can set up a collab center for your buyer, right? So you could set up a search, like, they're 500,000, you're looking in area 20, 35, 40, can set that up. I too ask my clients, I ask buyers, do you use Viewpoint? I would say it's probably a 70-30. Like, there are people who use Viewpoint. Viewpoint gives you a lot of information, especially on sale prices and stuff and history of properties. For me, it's just another tool in my toolbox. Obviously they have a brokerage as well. But I ask my clients because I want them doing homework too. I will do a CMA up on a place that we're going to write and be like, and I email that to them. I'm like, here are the houses, the comps that have sold in the last 6 months, prior to us writing a deal. I want them to be knowledgeable as well. The other thing I've started doing, especially when you have clients you've been looking at for a long time because they're in that under 500 price point, I have now set up a listing cart. So I have clients right now that I can go in the listing cart and I have everything we viewed in the last 9 months. So which I review with them every so often based on this house that we looked at for $399 sold for $470. Right? I want them to see what things have sold for. I want it to be part of their education process because just because it was listed at $399, that's not what that house was worth. It was worth $470. I do it now as kind of a reminder to me. And I hope that you won't work with all buyers for 9 months. However, when you've got clients that are looking for something specific and they're on a budget, $500,000 10, 15 years ago would have been a lot of money to buy a lot of house. Now it's a tough price point, be it. But I that's a little tip that I do to set up because I did that one day with them. I printed them all off and I'm like, these are the houses. So this is what you're interested in. And there were several of them that were too small. We wrote on one, we were in 9 competing offers. We lost out on that. So it's just keeps me. I used to have cut sheets that you'd have in their file, and I still print old cut sheets, but this little listing cart helps me, like, this is really good. So I would say to you, there's trainings too. I don't know how much you've done on Collab and Paragon and stuff like that, but you can set up searches. You use that quite a bit, Chris, for your,
Yes.
yeah, see, he's the tech guy, does all the things. And, like, when you talk about testimonials, terrible at getting testimonials. Oh, I know. And again, if create the habits, work with 2 clients, get testimonials, and then you can use them in your testimonial. But if you don't, if you haven't done a deal yet, talk about Keller Williams. Talk about, your brokerage. Talk about that there's 280 agents. Talk about that I have to look at stats. I think we're number 3 comes to brokerages in Nova Scotia. School information, like all that stuff. I have a utility guide sheet that I give buyers, but school information is going to be different for every buyer. So again, depending on if you want to tweak your buyer guide for each buyer, because now $500,000 will take you out of HRM. So no point me showing them links to HRM when we've been in Windsor and Stewiacke. Oh, fun times, lots of fun. Talk about band and so I say to you, that's a Jessica question or Chris. Customizable. I like it because it's something that I can bring, right? And I found it with just those little coil things. I have one of those machines. I think we have one here too. I like to give them something to have. And there's a little bit about me in there and how long I've been in the business and about the team and stuff like that. is something Chris talked about, just say, how do you want to be corresponded with, right? Figure that out pretty quick when they don't answer your calls. Then they text you 2 seconds later. Then going through, I do this with all my buyer consultations. I go through their wish list. Like, I want to know, like, clients that I'm telling about, like, they have 3 kids. So we have to have, they either has to be a bedroom downstairs or the potential to build a bedroom for it to work for them. Like, it has to be like a 3+1. So I'm not gonna take them to show a 2+1. Asking questions and figuring that stuff out really helps. Neighborhood insights, again, I would say to you, this isn't, I don't think it's really strong for Canada. I use Home Beats. Pay for that through Paragon. It sets up like, so when my clients purchase a property and set them up in Home Beat, so they get a monthly update from Paragon. It's called Home Beats. Home, HOMEEATS. I think I pay 2 something a year, which is my card. No, 200. Like a collab center set up, but it's for like, so when someone buys a house in Bedford, I set them up, and then monthly we get an update on here are the houses that are listed in your neighborhood or similar to yours. Here are the houses that are sold. It's what they would call a touch. They get 12 times a year from me. I don't do. I'm all about the easy button. Find the easy button. And how, I mean, go through the process with home buying on how it works. I try to keep it pretty simple on my consultations, in the sense that go through the process, like how we're gonna look at properties, you're gonna write how the negotiations goes. I talk about the due diligence. I talk about, like, then because of course you've talked to them about whether they've been pre-approved, because that's always my step 1. I am not going out looking, this is just me, but I'm not going out looking with people who haven't done a pre-approval. You'll just get burnt a couple times, wasting your time, and won't do it again. And again, you can have a client that's approved for 800, but they say 650 is our max. That's all we want to spend, because they want to be able to go on vacations, or, they want to have like a lifestyle that they don't want to have a mortgage for 800,000. Go through that process with them. But then I also assure them that as we view, then I'm not signing. Majority of times, I'm not signing documents on my initial buyer consultation. I'm then having separate appointment to go through paperwork. My initial consultation is me asking them questions of what they're looking for and what they want and what they need. And again, I explain process. You don't want to get into too much details when you're sitting for 2 hours talking about a lateral septic inspection versus like sewer line, or well and septic, and when we don't know if they're even buying on that yet. So that would be more of my, when I'm signing document consultation. Because it can be overwhelming, right? The process, but I want to assure them that I'm going to answer their questions as we go through the process, and I'm going to explain things as we go. Again, when I talk initial consultation, when it says about negotiating, right? Like, you want to give them a general idea, but I don't want to spend that whole consultation on that. It's when I'm signing paperwork, I then want to talk about the offer process is going to work, how long they're going to have to do their due diligence, a lawyer review, all that stuff. Their guide value proposition is essentially, this is the best way you can toot your own horn. I'd rather put it in writing and sit there for half hour and tell you about how great I am. Hopefully gonna show them how great I am. Me and the subtleties of how I would like to do things. And again, I think for this, you can use, if you're new, you can use the company's stats, the company's experiences. Yeah, yeah. Yes, thanks for coming. The other thing, what I like when I go through, which is very important, when I go through my BDBA, because you're explaining that, you're explaining about designated agency, but you're also explaining on how you get paid. Right? So I want my clients to know I can show them 20 homes. I'm not getting paid until they have a firm offer and close. Right? So I've had clients or buyers that are like, oh, well, we just called the listing agent because we weren't ready. Like, we weren't sure this was going to be the house. And, you know, like, we didn't want to bother you. That's where I'm having the consult in my consultation, and when I'm going through my BDBA, explaining of how I work, what I do for you, and when I get paid. And in that document, it's going to say how much you get paid. So for example, BDBAs used to say 2.5. I expect them now, it's on average of 2. When I'm signing my BDBA, which will be before we wrote on a property, I'm typically putting 2. If they end up writing on a place that's 2.5, I have to amend that. I'm amending that because I'm telling my consumer, my client, how much I'm getting paid. So that seems like that makes sense. Some people have a problem with that. I'm like, but you want to be upfront with them. You want them to know how much, because they're not paying it typically. It's getting paid by the seller. Wait. Well, most buyers are like, oh, well, you deserve that. You know what I mean? You're showing me 100 houses and driving all over the place, and this is how we're getting paid. Sorry for the buyer consultation. Oh, Logan, I have to read to do affirmations. That's cool. Okay. Welcome the buyer. I think I've rambled on a lot about doing a buyer consultation. Again, finding out their wish list is really important. I'm terrible as far as to tell you about the KW app. Say, ask Jessica. Why won't this move? Okay. Could be an hit page. What did I not explain about a buyer consultation? Come on. Any questions for me?
My own answer for this, years may vary, but you're gonna get clients that will say, just leave the guy, I'll take a look at it. Do you say that?
Or buyer consultation?
Consultation, they're like, yeah, you know what, this week's busy, just drop off your buyer guide, and talk next week.
So I'm a big on reading personalities. I like that. And when you talk about how people want to be corresponded with, I can tell based on personalities of someone. I am not your girl to tell you how to do pushy sales. Like they shouldn't have me teaching that, because that's not how I do my business. I am a relationship building realtor. That's how I want to do my business. I want them to know me, like me, and trust me. Those are my important. That's how I feel like that's how we are cohesive, work together. When again, I go back to like how I said about I want to date someone on one date first before we get into a relationship. So on that, I would say absolutely, because first of all, if you're taking the time to, whether you're gonna drop it off or you're gonna email it to them, um, then it's a matter of how hard are you gonna work for it, right? And then it comes down to, like, again, I know when we're new and in this business and then as we get older, like, all business is important, but I'm very particular who I wanna work with. Um, It's just, I don't know. I wanna say it's old age, but it's always the way I've been. It's the same with deciding whether when I have a listing and I get what we call a sign call, I have to determine whether I want to meet them, like, "Hey, I see you're listing on 123 Main Street. Can I look at it tonight, this evening at 7 PM?" I have to decide how I wanna do that. Am I going to just jump and do that? Their potential, I have literally gotten clients from showing them my listings before. Um, so I would say to you, follow up is important. But that's what I'm gonna do. I'm like, if someone wants me to sell myself to them, going to attempt to do it in my soft, subtle way though, but not down your throat person.
I've changed to, so when we drop off my big buyer's guide. That's how I find magic is in explaining it with the person, so my style is like. I've got stuff I want to explain. Or just listings and stuff, but I really don't just drop it off, because chances are. Keep chasing it.
Yep.
I always try to say, if you want.
And
Let me
well,
go over it, so that
there you
that's
go.
my
Yeah.
style.
Right. As I would look at that is, I've got to spend 2 hours putting this together. Do I want to do that? Again, it's a personal decision. That's what I'm really a believer in. You got to do what's best for you. Really do. And I feel like, again, 20 years ago, we do a training and it was like, you need to do this, this, and this. Now it's, do what works for you. There are lots of ways to make this work. So I just think providing clients information, providing them a positive experience, providing them knowledge, um, that's going to make it great for them. They're going to be happy. They're going to tell people that they were happy. Would say to you, one of the things for all of the KW agents, I would hope that, especially when you're new, we have mentorship program here. So if you're not on a team, you're paired up with someone who has experience and gives you guidance. You have a broker hotline. So if you don't know how to fill out a clause, or you have questions, hopefully you can call and you get the answer. Chris, yes, we can sometimes get the answers you want. Yeah, like, no, I'm on duty. Like, that's what I expect, right? As far as questions. And then you don't need to ever tell your clients that you checked with your broker. You don't need to tell them you've checked with your mentor. You can be like, I'm not sure about that. I'll get back to you. If you hear me say that because you called me with something crazy and bizarre, I'm going to say, I'm going to look into that and I'll get back to you. So I either have to look it up online and go through the rules. I got to call and bounce it off Anne. Like, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. Anne knows everything. Got a weird brain. She knows it all. So there are those resources there for you as well. And again, like, I could give you my checklists and you could be like, well, this is stupid. And what about these 5 things and add these in? And you know what I mean? You got to tweak everything to what works for you. Anyone online have questions?
Or people